The vampires in Ryan Coogler's Sinners are not what you think. They aren't just creatures lurking in the shadows of 1930s Mississippi. They're a profound, chilling metaphor for something much more real and terrifying: the violent pressure to assimilate. This isn't just another horror movie. It's a story that uses the supernatural to cut into the real-world horrors of racial oppression, the psychological weight of survival, and the fight to keep your very soul. To really get what's going on with the vampires, you first have to understand the world they're stalking. The year is 1932. The place is the Mississippi Delta. For Black Americans, this was a landscape of institutionalized terror. Jim Crow laws enforced a brutal segregation, turning daily life into a minefield of potential dangers. The Great Depression hit Black communities hardest. They were the first to be fired and the last to be hired, with unemployment rates soaring 2 to 3 times higher than for whites. And hanging over everything was the constant, visceral threat of mob violence. Between 1877 and 1950, Mississippi saw nearly 600 documented lynchings, a number that doesn't even begin to capture the unreported acts of terror. This is the normal world that twin brothers Smoke and Stack, played in an incredible dual role by Michael B. Jordan, return to. They show up with stolen money and a dream to build a juke joint, a sanctuary of Black joy and culture in a world dead set on crushing it. Juke joints themselves were radical spaces. Born after emancipation, they were often the only places Black people could gather, socialize, and breathe, free from the oppressive white gaze. They were crucibles of community, music, and cultural resistance, the very places where the blues and later jazz were born. So when Smoke and Stack decide to build one, they aren't just opening a club, they're building a fortress of identity. But it's this very act of cultural celebration that calls out to a new kind of monster. So let's break down how Sinners transforms the vampire myth into a powerful story about the Black American experience in the Jim Crow South. We'll explore how the film's deepest horrors aren't found in fangs or coffins, but in the impossible choices its characters have to make between who they are and simply staying alive. This is the central metaphor of the film. The vampires in Sinners, led by the charismatic and insidious Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, don't represent a simple fear of the undead. They represent the horror of assimilation. Vampirism in movies has always been a stand-in for our anxieties: disease, sexuality, foreign invasion. Sinners brilliantly retools this to explore the specific terror of having your culture erased. So how does it do this? First, there's the loss of identity. Becoming a vampire here isn't just a physical change. It's a spiritual and cultural death. The film constantly links vampirism to a rejection of the very soul of the community. Take the conflict between the gifted blues musician Sammy and his preacher father, who sees the music of the juke joint as sin. The vampires seem to offer a third way out, but it comes at the cost of the music itself. Annie, Smoke's hoodoo-practicing wife, describes the soul as being trapped by vampirism, not destroyed. A perfect metaphor for someone who has assimilated so much they've lost themselves. Then there's the allure of acceptance. Why would anyone take this monstrous deal? Because Remick is smart. He doesn't threaten hellfire. He promises salvation. He tells the people at the juke joint that he can give them a world without racism, a family where color doesn't matter because they're all undead together. For people facing daily dehumanization, this offer of protection is a powerful, seductive lie. It mirrors the real-world devil's bargain of assimilation. Give up who you are, your culture, your uniqueness, and maybe you'll be accepted. Remick, being an Irish immigrant, even uses his own people's history of prejudice to build a fake bridge of allyship, all while planning to control and co-opt their space. This leads to the most disturbing layer: transformation as monstrous code switching. The physical change into a vampire is a horrifying picture of the psychological gymnastics Black people have performed to survive in hostile white spaces. It's the final, irreversible act of code switching. The life force being drained isn't just blood. Its cultural vitality. The vampires want to absorb the very essence of the juke joint, especially Sammy's music, which they recognize as a powerful spiritual force. In this way, Coogler shows that assimilation isn't passive, but predatory, a draining of cultural lifeblood that leaves a monstrous, hollow shell. Sinners is fundamentally about the fight for identity, a theme Ryan Coogler has explored his whole career. Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of the twins, Smoke and Stack, is a masterclass in this. Though identical, they are completely different people. Smoke is guarded, wearing his trauma-like armor, while Stack is lighter, smiling through his pain. Their separate journeys show the different ways people respond to overwhelming oppression. The film directly critiques white supremacy by drawing a chilling parallel between two kinds of villains. On one side, you have Hogwood and his Ku Klux Klan allies, who represent open, violent racism. They want to eliminate the black community. On the other, you have Remick and his vampires, representing a more sinister, coercive supremacy. They want to absorb the black community, to own its culture while erasing its people. The film makes it clear that both roads lead to the same destination, the destruction of black identity. Sinners is also a deep dive into the psychological toll of oppression. Smoke is a man haunted by his past as a soldier, seeing himself as beyond redemption. The film's supernatural plot serves as a brutal allegory for how some traumas are inescapable. This is driven home by the presence of the Chow family, Chinese-American grocers navigating their own complex space between the black and white worlds, showing how systemic oppression ripples across all minority communities. If you're finding this analysis insightful and want more deep dives into the social commentary and horror, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue to break down the movies that matter. Sinners uses the vampire not as a simple creature of the night, but as a reflection of a uniquely American horror. By setting its story in the brutal reality of 1932 Mississippi, the film forces us to see that the threat of having your culture, your history, and your identity erased is just as terrifying as any monster. The vampire's offer of a colorless, immortal life is revealed to be a Trojan horse, a promise of freedom that's really a demand for total surrender. The film stands proudly in the tradition of black horror, a genre that has always used the supernatural to explore the real-world terrors of the black experience. Like groundbreaking films before it, from Ganja and Hest to Get Out, Sinners understands that for many, the world is already haunted. The monster in the dark is often just a reflection of the one walking in the daylight. The ultimate heroism in Sinners isn't just about fighting vampires. It's about the fight to remain whole in a world that wants to break you. The film's poignant mid-credits scene brings this home, jumping forward 60 years to find an elderly Sammy, who lived a full mortal life as a successful bluesman. He's visited by the ageless vampire Stack, who offers him immortality. Sammy declines, choosing the legacy of his hard-won, human song over an eternity of soulless existence. What did you see as the central metaphor in Sinners? Share your thoughts in the comments below.